Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel, and today we are continuing the Swamp Thing read-along with Saga of the Swamp Thing number 27. We are going to be concluding a story arc today, so if you have not watched the previous episodes in this series, or if you've never read this series before, I highly recommend you go back and at least watch those initial episodes. Otherwise, this is not going to make a whole lot of sense. Saga of the Swamp Thing, number 27, is written by Alan Moore, with pencils by Stephen Bissette and inks by John Totleben. While he's not credited in this issue, if we look at the trade paperback that collects this issue, it says here that pencils are done by Stephen Bissette and Rick Veitch. If my memory serves, the bulk of the work here was done by Bissette, and he was having some issues with deadlines. And so he brought in his friend Rick from the Kubert School to help him out with, I think, just like backgrounds and stuff like that. So probably not enough for them to actually credit him as a penciler in the issue itself. But that's what I think his contribution was. The cover is credited to Bissette and Totleben, and it is a really great cover composition-wise. I love, we've got the demon Etrigan crashing in through the skylight window. Looking up is a Swamp Thing and Abby at him as he crashes down. In the shards of glass, we see reflections of the Monkey King, who is terrorizing the autistic child's home. So really just great cover that covers all the bases. If I had to nitpick, I don't like this scattering of the glass here because they're too separated from each other. And I would like to see some overlapping shards, because when you have an overlap there, it creates the illusion of depth a little bit more. Since these are all just separate from each other, this just looks like different sizes of glass at the same level as each other. And so that's a little boring. You could spice this up a little bit. You can kind of see it here, what I'm talking about, where you get that depth of field. And you kind of lose it here, right in the center of the image. But that's a nitpick. So let's go ahead and start with the actual issue. So we do open with the demon crashing through the skylight. He's interrupting the Monkey King as he's terrorizing these children and Swamp Thing and Abby. The Monkey King is like an embodiment of fear, so he takes the form of whatever the person's biggest fear is. So we get a lot of monstrous images because of that, and it's really cool. And we open with some great narrative dialogue from Moore here, from the perspective of Etrigan, the demon. The demon is a rhyming demon, so Alan Moore loves to have fun and show off his poetic skills. So I'm actually going to read the opening here straight through, because I really want you to experience Moore's prose. So here we go. The frozen tableau, crystallized in time, hangs poised, like spilled blood yet to reach the ground. The terror of the audience turns to mime. Their screaming masks make not the slightest sound. A gourmet of despair, it gives me pleasure to chew upon this instant at my leisure. See here the poor bewildered orphan boy, whose parents set the monkey devil free. Perceiving magic as some parlor toy, their lives were forfeit, and his sanity. And here behold that pestilential ape, its grip upon his arm could not be faster. Its name is Fear. Like fear it alters shape, and yet it licks his hand, and calls him master. And for these shrieking statues I'll not weep, they'll perish as they've lived, dazed, witless sheep. In slaughterhouses far beyond their ken, I shed no tear for those that die unshriven, for they are men, just men, and what are men but chariots of wrath, by demons driven. So that's the name of the issue, is By Demons Driven. And we get this great spread page here of Etrigan taking a swipe at the monstrous Monkey King. Awesome, terrifying imagery here from Bissette. And in the framing here, in the margins, we get from the previous issue. We saw the autistic students' drawings of the Monkey King. We get those here just as a little framing design, which is nice. But yeah, the demon has entered the fray, and he's getting involved, and uh, he's trying to take down the Monkey King. So let's see. But he's a bit morally gray, because on the previous page he's mentioning that the bystanders there, he's not gonna cry over them if they die. Like, they're sheep, they don't know any better. You know, he's mostly here just to deal with the evil. So right now, the goal is to get the Monkey King away from Paul, just to separate them, and the demon does that. He jumps on him. He breaks that connection. They let the Monkey King lets go of Paul's hand, and Abby scoops him up. And from there, the Monkey King sees them in his eyes. We can see this dark red eyes in his white fur, the reflection of Abby and Paul. This drives him insane. He lets out a huge screech, and he slams Etrigan's head basically against the panel border, which is really awesome. It's a really forceful blow, and it almost looks like Etrigan's head explodes because of it. You kind of think, like, how on earth does he get up from that? It's such a powerful looking motion. And before the Monkey King can, reach Abby and Paul, he's leering at them. Swamp Thing punches into his gut. He tells Abby, "Run for the swamp." And before she runs, she says, "But what about you? There, but what about you? There are those two monsters." And he cuts her off by ripping the Monkey King basically like in half, like bifurcating him. And he delivers this badass line: "Three monsters, run." And you could hear the intensity in his voice, because colorist Tatiana Wood colors this bubble red. Usually Swamp Thing's dialogue is in orange, but this one he's really putting some probably some like guttural monstrous voice behind this. He's saying, "I'm one of the monsters. Run! Like, I'll take care of this." So really cool there. I like these panels kind of breaking off in this way. And Abby and Paul run off into the swamps. We do cut away now to Matt Cable, who was driving drunk in the previous issue, and he crashed his car, absolutely totaled it, and he's not doing so good. And he's asking, whose blood is all of this? Oh my God, I don't want to die. He's delirious, and he's so delirious he starts to see this giant fly, this giant talking fly. That's like, that tells him, "Go ahead and scream. There is no one to hear, and I'll still be here when you're finished." And it's really creepy. What is this fly about? This fly's got some motives. And this is such a great, disgusting panel of Matt's face. But we cut back to the swamp and Abby and Paul, and Abby's silhouette here with the white hair. They keep using this. It's really great. I love that. Great way to quickly identify her. And she's telling Paul that she's scared because he's picking up on her frustration about what's going on here. And they're in the woods, and behind them, you could see two red eyes very faintly growing behind them. And he's rhyming. We get a dialogue bubble, and it's rhyming. So we know that it's Etrigan, the demon. He jumps out, he knocks Abby aside, he goes to grab Paul. And his right now his plan is that Paul and his family brought the Monkey King into existence. So by consuming the child, by killing the child, that would also stop the Monkey King. So he's attacking Paul. Abby's trying to stop him. We get this panel here where we're viewing them from afar, and we get this tree in the foreground. Etrigan hits Abby, and then we get that same view of her on the ground. But now that tree, the reason we can see her on the ground is because that tree has been moved. So it's really clever. We wouldn't be able to see her if that tree was still there. So the tree's been moved. The tree's floating in midair. How is that possible? Well, the demon is interrupted, and Swamp Thing has picked up the tree and slams it against Etrigan. And I'm not saying that this was done on purpose, but I do think that Stephen Bissette maybe was trying to get away with something, and DC Editorial missed it. this is a pretty suggestive pose. You know, like the way Swamp Thing is like kind of hunched down, and like he's got this enormous wood that he's slamming in the demon's face. Just I don't know. You be the judge. I'm not going to say it was done on purpose, but pretty suggestive to me. Uh, but the demon gets up, stands up, and now he's mad because Swamp Thing's interfering with his plan, and he's gonna fight back now. Really quick, this panel here, I am losing my mind trying to figure out what this panel is from, because I'm pretty sure this is a swipe. It's a swipe or an homage or it's something. Because I feel so strongly that I've seen this exact like pose and composition before. It feels like a Frank Frazetta thing to me, but it also like I have vague memories of like maybe a Dracula or a Frankenstein. I kind of thought maybe it's like the cover to Creepy #3 by Frazetta, but it's not exact. I feel like this is I've seen this exact thing elsewhere. So if you know what this might be swiped from or homaging, please let me know in the comments because it is driving me nuts. But yeah, Etrigan takes a swipe at Swamp Thing, cuts his arm, and we get a great wordless page here where we see the arm fall to Swamp Thing's side, and very calmly, he picks the arm back up, he puts it back on the shoulder, and it reconnects. We got the Etrigan is watching this happen, and then with that very same arm that Etrigan just removed, he punches him in the stomach. So I really like that sequence. That's a lot of fun. So we're back in the swamp now with Abby and Paul running through. Again, that black silhouette with the white hair. And the demon and Swamp Thing are fighting. And they've left the Monkey King unattended. So what's going to happen? Of course, he's going to chase after Abby and the child. So he's got them right where he wants them. We cut back to Matt Cable in the car accident. More great, just like car accident imagery. Just a really beat up face. He looks like he's really been through it. His teeth have been knocked out. We get a nice close up of it because the Fly is talking to him and basically making a deal saying, if you want to see your wife again, if you want to keep living, then you've got to do something for me. Open up your mouth as wide as it will go. And we get that image here. We see from inside his mouth the missing tooth that's dripping blood from the gums. Like, dental horror is so disgusting to me. Like, that's like the worst thing in this issue to me. That's the scariest thing. I hate that. And the Fly is going into Matt's mouth and causes something to happen. We get this great like color change where it's like almost like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where his eyes are rolling in the back of his head and something's happening to him. We don't know what yet, but the Fly has entered Matt Cable's body. And we get what a waste of a centerfold to like just have it on an ad and coupon page, but oh well. We're back with Abby and Paul, and again, the Monkey King takes the form of whatever you fear the most. So Abby is seeing Matt in the Monkey King because Matt has been verbally abusive to her, an alcoholic, and she's not happy in that marriage. So she's seeing him, and in this moment here, Paul finds his courage, and he screams at the Monkey King, "No, leave her alone. You killed my mom, you killed my dad, but I'm not afraid of you." And really awesome. Again, really frightening imagery here. Kind of reminds me of The Thing from the John Carpenter movie with like the two faces splitting off. The Monkey King makes himself look like Paul's mom, but he's not buying it. Paul keeps shouting at him, "No, you're not my mom. My mom is dead. You're a scummy little monkey and you don't scare me. You're a liar. You just pretend to be things. Well, you could pretend to be a snake or a wolf or a monster, and I don't care. You're not frightening me." And we get a great panel here where all the other characters in the scene stop what they're doing and pay attention. Like Swamp Thing and Demon aren't fighting anymore. They're watching Paul, who's found this courage, and this is kind of his hero moment where he's standing up to the villain. And just like in Nightmare on Elm Street 1, by standing up to the villain and not being afraid of it, it causes it to shrivel up into basically nothing. No bigger than a bug. He's able to hold it in his hands. The demon grabs the Monkey King, lifts him up, and drops him down his gullet and consumes him. So that is the end of the Monkey King. The threat has passed. And on the next page here, the demon has to concede. The ape is caged. It seems where demons fail and monsters falter, angels may prevail. But he's not done yet. He does issue one last warning to the group, saying, your parents freed the monkey with a charm spelled out in random letters on a board. Was there some further fiend that nudged their arm? The answer, madam, is for you to know. I've said too much. My job is done. I go. So, and we get this great 3-panel sequence where he's receding into the darkness. You got his red eyes there, and then nothing. So he's gone. So he's telling them it was the parents of Paul that freed the Monkey King, but was there something else that pushed that and made that happen? So that's a new mystery that's being raised here. Abby wants to know more. So she tells Swamp Thing, bring Paul back home, stay with him. I got to go find out more from the demon. And so they're left alone, and Swamp Thing asks Paul, scared? Paul says, no, not anymore. Can I go home now, please? And Swamp Thing just smiles. Really nice moment. I love any moment where the monster Swamp Thing can just have those moments of humanity that he so craves, and being able to take care of this child. You can really tell in his face that he's happy to do it. So as Swamp Thing is walking Paul home, Paul asks him what he saw in the Monkey King. And Swamp Thing says, I saw fire. Once I knew someone who died by fire. And Paul asks him if he was afraid, and Swamp Thing says, yes, a little. And Paul responds, that's good. I mean, it makes me feel better. I mean, if even monsters get scared sometimes, then it isn't so bad, is it? And Swamp Thing says, no, it isn't so bad. Really nice moment. And Abby finds who but Jason Blood in the swamp. Yes, if it wasn't clear already, Jason Blood and Etrigan the Demon are one and the same. He goes on to explain here that they made a bargain many years ago, many, many years ago, and where they're sharing basically this body. And since then, he has grown more like Etrigan, and unfortunately, Etrigan has just become more of himself, and he feels like he's losing the battle between the two sides. You can see that clearly displayed here in this upright, clear panel of Jason Blood's face, and then the irregular panel that's falling off with this demonic kind of face here. So really good use of panel layout. It's all one image that shows the dichotomy within him. She's asking about the warning that Etrigan gave, but unfortunately he can't really help because they are two separate sides. And he says, Etrigan knows things that I do not. If he warned you, you'd best stay on your guard. Sometimes a demon may offer words of wisdom, and sometimes they even tell the truth. And he walks away, and we wrap up with Swamp Thing bringing Paul home, and then receding to the swamp. And we get a closing narration, presumably from Etrigan the Demon, because it's rhyming, and we'll close just by reading it. Along its eastern edge, the sky's aflame. He skulks back to his mud, his ferns and stones. Is it unease he feels, without a name, or merely autumn gnawing at his bones? The things of shadow vanish with the night. Worse horrors still are heralded by light. And the light that is heralding in those horrors are car headlights. And who rides up next to Abby but Matt in his restored car? He looks to be back to normal. So something happened when that fly went into his body, that he appears normal. He says, I came to apologize. Do you need a ride? She gets in the car, and we get more rhyme. Thus mollified she goes, harsh words forgiven, down highways in the dark, by demons driven. Closing out with that imagery of demons. Obviously, we have the demon Etrigan, the whole issue. who was kind of a good guy, and now Abby, is being driven literally by a demon, and that's going to be a problem in the next story arc. But that does wrap up this one, and we do get a closing dedication to Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby is the creator of Etrigan the Demon, and he's the greatest comic creator to ever live. He's my personal favorite. And Alan Moore was a huge proponent of his and a huge champion of his. So this story, I guess, is dedicated to him. Next up, issue 28 is The Burial. And what this actually does is, if we were reading this in paperback form, this would be the last issue of the first volume. So we have completed volume 1 of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, that we're 1/6 of the way through. Let me know if there's anything I missed in this issue that you really liked, or anything from this volume that you liked. What did you think of the whole thing overall? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.